Melton, Palermo, Rowe, Bagley, Harding, Johnson.
Here.
Mr. President.
Here. Please rise for the pledge and remarks by Councilman Rowe.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can all have a seat? We just wrapped up 2022 just a few weeks ago, and for some it was a tough year. For others, it was a good year, and they enjoyed good times. I just say as we enter into 2023, if we encounter headwinds and challenges, that we do so with courage and determination. If our path has been made straight for us, let's accept that with gratitude and humility. I hope that all of us can say in 2023 we'll experience a measure of grace, of peace, of hope, but most importantly, love. Let's have a great 2023.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Omaha City Council. We appreciate having you here today to remark on our various items. I encourage you to turn your cell phones off or at least to vibrate. Okay.
Item 6, to consider a Class C liquor license for Jaipur Dundee, located at 5018 Underwood Avenue, Suite 104.
Public hearing and vote on number 6 is today. Proponents, please.
Andrew Collins, Erickson Cedars from law firm, 10330 Regency Parkway Drive, 68114, on behalf of the applicant. The council has the packet in front of you, so I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Just one background item I'll note for you. This is a corporate restructuring. So this body licensed the entity right at the end of 21 to open the restaurant, start serving. This relicensure is just the product of a corporate restructuring. There'll be no change in operations. The individuals operating the restaurant are remaining the same. Happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Great, thanks. That was the only question I was going to ask, so thanks for summarizing that.
You bet.
Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Second, roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 7, to consider a Class D liquor license for Po' Boy Mega Alley, located at 6011 North 30th Street. East Communications in opposition.
Public hearing and vote on number 7 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Lindsay Schuler. I'm with Croker Huck Law Firm, 2120 South 72nd Street, Suite 1200, Omaha, Nebraska, 68124. I am here representing Po' Boy Mega Alley and Mr. Myron Minifield here today. I know that there have been at least 4 email communications that had oppositions, and so I'm going to address that briefly here today. Po' Boy Mega Alley is at the corner of North 30th and Kansas Street. It's a community convenience store. It will be carrying snacks, beverages, take-home foods, and minor electronics. Its application for a liquor license is for the purpose of carrying limited alcoholic beverages that will, in anticipation of being only about 15% of its overall inventory. We have reviewed the comments from community members and would like to address their concerns. First and foremost, Po' Boy Mega Alley is not primarily a liquor store like its neighboring store off of Laurel Avenue. But it's a convenience store with only a small percentage of its inventory being alcoholic beverages. Po' Boy Mega Alley strives to be a connection in the community and the neighborhood, and not an eyesore or a location for criminal activity. Mr. Minifield here has already taken a derelict and abandoned property and made it into a beautiful building. And if I may, I will post it here for you. Do I need to hit another button?
Just move it up a little bit.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, gross.
There you go. That's good.
Okay, so this used to be a burned down gas station, and it has sat abandoned for several years. Mr. Menefield purchased it about 2 years ago. He's done renovations and beautified the area, including the parking lot and the building itself, and that is intended to be the convenience store. And here, oops, let's see here.
On top, if you can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and so the pink highlighted outlined area is where the building sits, right here with its parking lot. It is just south of Miller Park and right off of North 30th. Mr. Menefield has been active in reaching out to a number of community members, including the businesses around the area, the local churches, Nelson Mandela Elementary School, and a nearby daycare establishment. None of those business entities have provided any sort of negative comments or feedback. They are actually excited about the business. They are looking forward to having an active business in the area that is cleaning up that corner. The location at the southwest corner of Miller Park is meant to be an inclusive community area and will provide to-go food items, and it has eventual plans to allow food truck visits and provide a location to exchange homegrown produce. I would like to introduce Mr. Myron Menefield, who is the owner of the property and the sole member of Po' Boy Mega Alley. Myron was raised in North Omaha. He has a large focus of betterment in the community. And I have worked with Myron for the last several years, assisting him with his various business ventures, but also helping him achieve a donor recognition and organize events for the Native Omaha Days in North Omaha this past year. I can without a doubt say that no matter what project he is working on, he focuses on betterment of the community and that he is always willing to give back. So I'm going to leave this open to comments from Mr. Myron on his efforts for this business, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Okay, hi. I was the owner of Po' Boy Mega Alley.
Just your name and address for the record, too.
I'm sorry, I was the owner of Po' Boy.
I'm sorry, your name and your address
I'm
for the
sorry.
record? Yeah.
My address is 6536 Reed Street, Omaha, Nebraska. Okay. I was the owner of Po' Boy Auto Sales on 24th and Maple. This was kind of abandoned corner, and it was known for like illegal gambling. And I partnered with NIA Insurance and Po' Boy Auto Sales. We were there for about 12 years, and we sold thousands of cars at that area. And we had community appreciation. We had carnivals. We had pony rides for the kids. And at the end of the situation, once we moved, the community, they really hated to see us go. And I plan to bring that same energy that we displayed on 24th and Maple to 30th and Kansas. And then also, like Lindsay alluded to, I reached out to Mandela, then the daycare right across the street from us, the surrounding churches, and like I said, everybody seems to be pretty excited. And as far as a liquor store, we're going to be much more than a liquor store, because like I said, we're going to have food, we're going to sell telephones and telephone repairs, and we just want to bring a positive vibe to the area. And with that, I mean, it's going to be excellent, where everybody can feel safe. Nobody will be hanging around with their pants sagging down. You know, if they got their pants down, boy, put your pants up. So that's the kind of vibe that we're going to bring.
Okay. Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you. Myron, if you would come back up, please. Thank you, and thank you for coming today. Really appreciate that. I had tried to reach you over the weekend. Unfortunately, when the agenda item is put forth on Thursday, this was put there, and that only gives us a small window to get in contact with each other, and that leaves us with Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and today. that window of opportunity is so short. But despite my many duties, I did try to reach out to you
Okay.
and talk to you. Now, we did talk this summer and you showed me around the building, so there is no doubt in my mind that the building and the service that you provide to the area is great. It is definitely an improvement. But if you recall, I did ask that I brought some concerns about the community in terms of what the community wanted, and I kind of shared with you that there was some concern about new liquor license in the North Omaha area. And I asked that you reach out to the IMA and other um, clergy in North Omaha to get them to have a buy-in to what you were doing. So at this time, I'm asking you, because that's what I was trying to get a hold of you over the weekend, was to find out if you followed through on that request.
I just, like I said, just contacted the churches and everybody, the businesses in the area. Like I said, the Mandela School and the churches, there's in the daycares, everybody, the businesses that were directly in that. But the other thing, I don't think I did that.
So I would ask at this time that you respectfully consent to laying this over so that you and I can market this product to the community and try to change the overall image that we have in North Omaha, where we work in silos, we have new businesses, and the overall concept in the past has been that it's okay to sneak upon the community different things that's going to happen in terms of betterment of the area without talking to neighbors, without talking to other people in the community in which you're going to be providing an awesome service to. The only thing is that we haven't taken that moment to get them to recognize what you're doing and what you're going to bring to the area. And we may find that everyone is great with that. We can't assume that everyone is going to say no to something that you're bringing to the area, especially, what you're bringing overall. So we just need to slow down a bit and include others, especially when you're in an underserved community. We have so many people that are saying, hey, the city of Omaha is always bringing things to our community, and they don't say anything to us about it. Our voices don't matter. We see that every day when we have elections. They come about, and the participation of folks in North Omaha is very low. And that low turnoff, if you ask most people in that area, is because they don't feel like they have a voice. They feel like they don't have hope. What do you feel? Because today, if I had to make a decision on this, I would ask that we lay this over so that we can go out, and I'd be happy to go out in the community and talk with the IMA and others to get that buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what she's asking?
Yeah, sure.
Council member, if I may address your question, I would indicate that Mr. Menefield has owned this business for 2 years and has been actively talking to individuals in the community. I do note that, we sent out the 500 feet notices in addition to his communications, and the negative impact that we see is 4 emails that the main concern is that it's primarily a liquor store. And so with Mr. Menefield's active participation in the community over the years, in addition to reaching out to the 2 churches, an elementary school, and the local businesses in the area that have not provided any negative comment and are relatively excited for a new convenience store business, I would like that we would recognize his efforts in that, and that this is not a fly-by-the-night type of business. He has been actively reaching out to individuals to see what they need in the community. And this is not something that is going to negatively impact the community in a way that, you know, people feel like they have been bombarded or that they have been surprised by this business, because it has been taking shape over the last 2 years. And so I just want to recognize Mr. Minifield's accomplishments in that, and his efforts to reach out to community members in order to provide the notice and the discussion that you have asked for.
Thank you, and I recognize his accomplishments in the area, but that does not take away from the overall feel of a community such as North Omaha, where most of the individuals are living in poverty, and they feel as though we as city individuals don't really give them much of a say. And they feel as though they're hopeless. They feel that we don't listen to them as politicians. So ordinarily, I would have said I would have recommended a no for this item, simply because the interdenominational ministerial alliance, which is very impactful in our area, and Myron can attest to that, have made a request from their city council representative to not okay any new liquor license in North Omaha. And I shared that information with Myron over the summer month, that was an overall concern of mine, not only mine, but constituents in the area as well as clergy in that area. Should we not listen to those concerns? Should we turn a naked eye to those concerns? Because Myron has an excellent record regarding a businessman, and so we just simply don't listen to any of that? Or should we engage those individuals so that we have a happy, successful business with the add-on of the additional liquor?
I understand that concern, your Councilwoman. I don't believe that this is ignoring their request. Myron has reached out to the clergy members that are in the area that would be directly impacted by the business. He has taken into consideration their desires for additional community involvement. One church I know that he discussed, having a semi-farmer's market or an ability to exchange homegrown produce, and that was something that they're going to actively work towards together. And Myron, do you want to provide any additional commentary on that conversation?
We talked about the idea of the farmers market, and then there was an issue where a pedestrian got killed by a car. So we came up with the idea that we were going to partner on trying to get that traffic signal situation worked on. I told him I had a law firm that was willing to help me to partner with the church, and I think it was Old Talk to try to help with that situation. So basically, I just want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem with this poor boy mega alley. No more, no less.
Okay. So Myron, is there a reason why you didn't reach out to IMA or follow my suggestion that I gave you?
I'm sorry. I had so much going on, and I guess I was just thinking all the people around the area, like I said, the neighbors, because people stop all the time and say, "Hey, when are you guys coming? When are you guys coming? We want to, we pass by here and it's not open. When are you guys coming? When are you guys coming?" We're excited about it. But yeah, that part there must have just slipped my mind. I was more thinking about the people directly in the neighborhood. And I'm sorry for that.
No problem. So, but how much of an impact would that be to engage in that conversation, and we lay this over until next week on next Tuesday during City Council? How will that impact your business?
That we could be okay with that.
Okay, so then I'm, with my understanding is that you would need to enter in the layover. Is that
Are
what
you
you're
okay
saying
with that?
right now? You would agree to that?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, all right, then I
For,
will,
for a period of 1 week, ma'am?
yes,
Okay.
I think that would be in the best interest of the community in which he serves.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's your motion?
Yes.
I'll second. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Actually, Lindsay and Myron, I'm sorry, if you would come back.
Yes, Mr. Harding.
Thank you. I was getting a little confused. I had my light on, but I think you, in large part, addressed what I was going to say. I think Mr. Mendenfield stated that he personally went around and talked to the neighbors, to the businesses that would be in the immediate area. I think that's what we usually ask of the people to do, and I think that's exactly what he's done. I know there's been a request, and you said that you would agree to a layover, but I quite frankly think you've checked all the boxes. And I know what you've done in the community, as well as really for the city of Omaha as a whole. And I'm quite excited about the prospect of you doing it. Again, I would be voting yes today. And I don't quite frankly see the need for the layover, since you've done exactly what we ask of applicants to do in this situation. So that was more of a comment. I don't know if you'd like to, if you want to respond to that.
I do have a short response.
Thank you.
Mr. Harding. So the liquor license application requires us to get basically a waiver from churches, schools, daycares, etc., within so many feet, 150 feet at least, and there aren't any, and Mr. Mendenfield expanded his scope into the churches that were to the northwest, elementary schools to the northwest across from the park, because he does hope to have a large community involvement through the park, being on the corner of the park, and making it a safe situation with those crosswalk areas there. And so I do appreciate that recognition. Mr. Mendenfield has been active in reaching out to those people beyond his statutory duty in order to make sure that this is a safe and community-oriented business for everybody.
And I appreciate that. We would have to waive Rule 7 as well, too, because of the park, I believe. But
Yep.
Again, I'd be voting yes today.
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
We're in agreement to go ahead and lay over. It's not going to significantly impact anything, so we'll see you guys here next week.
All right.
Thank you. No further lights. There's a motion and a second for a 1 week layover. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Items 8 through 10 can be considered together for Regency Landing, located northwest of 107th Avenue and Pacific Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 8, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the MCC overlay district to incorporate this property into that district. Item 9, a resolution to approve the final plat. Item 10, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and vote on items 8, 9, and 10 are today. Proponents, please.
Kyle Hazy with E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road, representing the applicant. I'll make myself available for any questions council may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion
Thank
passed 7-0. One public hearing can be held for items 11 through 18 for South Streams located southeast of 204th and Q Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Items 11 through 15, ordinances to rezone this property from AG District to DR District, R4 District, R5 District, R6 District, and MU District. A is amendments of the whole. Item 16, an ordinance to approve a mixed-use district development agreement. Item 17, a resolution to approve the final plat. Item 18, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and vote on items 11 through 18 are today. Just a reminder to council members that each will need a separate vote due to several amendments of the whole. Proponents, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Larry Jobin, 11440 Weston Road, appearing on behalf of the developer. This is a 125-acre subdivision on the southeast corner of 204th and Q Street. There's 240 lots and 19 outlots. There's various zoning classifications. There's the development reserve. There's also R4, R5, R6, and mixed use. So it's a pretty significant development at this particular location. My understanding is the amendment of the whole was based upon some incorrect legal descriptions that were in the original ordinances, and I think Eric England is here to explain that if you have any questions about that. Otherwise, I'm here for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you. First, I have a procedural question. I believe only 15 has the amendment of the whole. Is that correct, or is there another one that?
11 through 15.
Correct.
No, only number 15 has the amendment of the whole.
It's 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15.
Each of them had.
Printed that up. This is the updated version.
Okay.
That's your Thursday version.
That's why I thought I wrote amendment of the whole down though for 15. Okay. All right. So yeah, I know. Okay. So we do have to have individual motions on it. Okay. So I'll start with move to approve 11.
Second.
Amendment of the whole, right?
Amendment of the whole. Yeah,
Same
that
second.
one.
Second the amendment of the whole.
Okay. And before we vote, Mr. England, you were referenced. Is he here or not? Okay.
Actually, this is your area.
Would you just give us the short summary of the amendments of the whole and why they're there?
Oh, that's right.
Sure. Eric England, Planning Department. Yes, unfortunately, there was a discrepancy between the hard copies of the ordinances that were sent down for all the different rezonings with the electronic version. There was unfortunately an error that the electronic version had referenced a previous iteration of the plat that had different lot numbers. So my apologies on behalf of that change. I caught it, I think, on Friday, and unfortunately staff had caught it back a couple months ago, but there was still the mistake with the electronic version.
Got it. Thanks. So there was a motion and a second to approve the amendment of the whole for number 11. I don't see any further lights. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley. Harding.
Yes.
Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Move the amendment of the whole for number 12.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley. Harding.
Yes.
Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Move amendment of the whole.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
I'll second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Roll call.
Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Motion to move 16 through 18 in a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 19, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Pacific Rose located at 9402 Pacific Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 19 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Council. On behalf of developer Dan Dolezal, Earhart Griffin Associates, 3552 Farnham Street, here to answer questions. We are the civil engineers.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thanks. Dan, if I could have you come up for just a minute. So I think in a previous version on the development of this site by the same developer, there was a requirement for a fence between Sunset Hills Baptist Church and the property line.
Yes.
Which would be the west property line of the development, east property line of the church. And then when the request came through for a rezoning from that original plan because of some changes to the development, there was also some conversation about that fence line at the planning board. I believe it's been taken care of with the with what had to go with the waiver to zoning board of appeals. Is that correct?
That's, I'd have to go back and look, but I know we've included on our construction drawings we're preparing.
Okay.
We're planning on putting it in.
All right, and I know I talked to the developer this morning about that because I wanted to make sure that was very important to getting the approval of or those in the developer as well as the neighbors. Those conversations was all parties were agreeable to that. So
Yes.
and he mentioned that to me this morning too. So I just wanted to make sure that it was on the record that the fence between the Sunset Hills Baptist Church and the property lines of the individual lots of this development would be part of the approved plan. I know we're only at preliminary plat.
Right.
We could take care of it later if it wasn't, but I wanted to make sure it was on the record today.
Yeah, and actually it was on I hate to say it, but with AutoCAD, it's a layered drawing, and it was a layer that got turned off inadvertently, so.
Okay.
But we're planning on putting it in, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion and a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 20, a resolution to approve a special use permit to allow automotive sales in the CC District located at 3217 North 90th Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 20 is today. Proponents, please. Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Bahram Moripov. Reside at 15179 Laurel Avenue, Omaha, Nebraska. Applied for a special use permit to allow automotive sales.
Great. Here to answer questions.
And I'm here to answer questions, yes.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Is there a motion? I'll second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 21, a resolution to approve a special use permit to allow small group living in the R4 district located at 5608 Blondo Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. B is communication in opposition.
Public hearing and vote on number 21 is today. Proponents, please. Pastor Lassiter, welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Ralph Lassiter, 2602 North 24th Street. I'm here in support of the special use permit for Second Mile, which is located at 56 in Blondo. And first of all, I'm here to answer questions, but I do know that there was a couple of questions that were proposed, or should I say submitted by one of the neighbors. And if I could, I'd like to go ahead and address those questions and then would answer any questions that members of the council might have. One of the questions asked about the type of offenders that our residential program serves. And they asked specifically, are the clients violent, are they sex offenders, or are they drug offenders? First of all, the program is called Second Mile because it is designed for those individuals who have completed a first level program such as drug treatment or something else. We do not accept individuals who have active drug addictions, nor do we accept individuals who are violent offenders or individuals who are on the sex offenders list. We do a very thorough background check, and those individuals who might have those incidents in their background are not accepted into the program. In addition to that, we do probably the most thorough drug testing on a regular basis just to ensure that those individuals are not slipping if drug addiction was one of their issues. The second question that was asked, basically they stated that the program has been operating for 1 to 2 years. Why are they just being notified? First of all, statutes allow group living for 4 or less to operate in R4 districts without a special use permit. Also, statute allows programs that serve clients classified as disabled to operate small group living for up to 8 individuals. It's our desire that our clients view themselves as fully fledged citizens and not as disabled. Not that there is a problem with anyone being disabled. And so we chose not to classify our clients as disabled. Consequently, we pursued all of the meeting all of the requirements for special use. In addition, we spent quite a bit of time making sure that our neighbors were aware. Unfortunately, we didn't have many neighbors to attend the 2 open houses that we conducted. We do have neighbors who have expressed on more than one occasion their pleasure that the program exists because they actually feel safer now that the program is here. So that's just, those were the issues that were raised by the one communication that was attached to the agenda, and I'm available to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Please come down.
Marcela Parra, 2019, North 56, Omaha, Nebraska, 66104. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcela Parra, as I mentioned. I am from Bogota, Colombia. I moved to Omaha 3 years ago because me and my husband wanted to start a family, and we believe Omaha is the best place to do so. We have 10-month-old twins, Cuz and Delilah. As a community member, I do not have any against Second Mile Inc. I think the project has an incredible future, and I deeply admire what the organization is doing. I also do not hold anything against the people who are part of the program, but as a mom and as the protector of my kids, I am concerned about who can potentially be my kid's neighbor. I'm worried about what kind of recovering addicts can apply to the program and the limited requirements that Second Mile Inc. currently has to select our future neighbors. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
As a protector of my kids, I want the very best for them. And that's why we choose the Historic Country Club neighborhood as a kid-friendly and affordable neighborhood. Here are my main concerns. We don't know who is getting accepted into this program. We do know from the city planning meeting that Second Mile needs to expand soon in order to meet financial obligations, so they want to fill the house fast. If you grant this special permit, they can admit anyone into the house without limitation. Here are some of the questions on the application which concern me. Do you have any protection orders? Were you ever incarcerated? Are you currently incarcerated? If yes, what's the name and number of your case manager? Do you have pending criminal charges? Are you currently on parole or probation? Second Mile is a new organization, and 5008 Blondo is their first house. Expanding to 8 people is not something that they have done before, and I am concerned about who they will admit into the program in order to fill the house. My second concern is supervision. I send my kids to a daycare where they legally needs to be one supervisor for 4 children. With these 8 people living in the house, who is in charge? Who lives on site? It seems like the 2 staff members live almost 40 minutes away each. As a community member, my request is for Second Mile Inc. to have a documented selection system for the people applying to become part of the program. As a mom, I do not want to expose my kids to any harm that can be prevented. It is true that Second Mile doesn't need a permit to expand to 8 handicapped residents today, but they want the permit for a reason, and I would like them to put that reason in writing. I'm here today to ask that this project get put on hold until Second Mile puts in writing the following items: the criteria for accepting participants into the program, and the supervision plans for the house. Who will supervise the participants, and how often will the supervisor be at home? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll seek to get some of those questions answered here in a minute too. Thank you. Any other opponents that want to speak?
passport. I'm from Colombia, South America. Do I need to bring that to talk?
Larry, your name and address, or, Larry, Donnie, your name and address, please, for the record.
Oh, wait, just a second.
Okay.
I avoid this.
All right. Any other opponents that want to speak to this item? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Pastor Lester, if you might come up just for a minute. So I want to engage in a few questions here. I did get some concerns from the neighborhood early on with this application when it went to planning board. I know there was some opposition there too, and there were some good questions asked just now I want to walk through with you. So as you described, the current property is currently being used for a similar use, but only for individuals, right?
Correct, correct.
And no incidents that I'm aware of with the neighborhood today?
Correct.
Okay. And the reason, as you explained, why you're here and why you're seeking a special use permit is because you're seeking the non-disabled classification,
Correct.
which then requires that permit. But without that permit, you could still operate exactly as you are today, right?
That is correct.
In my view, what's positive about the special use permit is that it allows us to have this conversation and talk about some of these details and make sure everybody's comfortable with how things would operate here. And it also does some things like address, parking and landscaping and things like that I think would be improvements. So I want to engage in some of those things here for a minute. I do think it's really important in instances like this that we do have a contact person listed for neighbors, and that contact person is visible and present. I believe that name is Larry Nicholson?
Larry Nicholson, that is correct, yes.
And I believe that's in your application materials too, his contact information and all those things?
Yes.
So if anyone ever had a concern, that's who you call?
Larry Nicholson is the executive director. He lives in Plattsmouth but works in Omaha and also has an office in the home. We also have a resident manager who lives in the home.
Okay. And that resident manager is there 24/7?
Correct.
I was going to ask you about the hours of the facility being staffed too. So that person is there, or if not him, there's other staff involved too, I think,
Yes.
right? Can you describe that a little bit?
Well, we also have a program manager who does not live there, but is on call at any time. And we also have a counseling manager, even though we're not a treatment program, and she's available on call as well.
Okay. And the neighbors would have that information, or you'll provide that information?
We
to
can
neighbors?
provide that information to them, yes.
And are there, hours of operation, or how would you describe that for residents, or visitation, I guess you'd say, for friends and family and such?
The men who come into our program are in the process of reuniting with their families and restructuring family relationships. We rarely have many more than one or two visitors at any one time. The men are required to be employed, and most of the time they're either employed, they're going through life skills classes, or they're attending church. So there's anything that the men talk about is that they don't really have a lot of free time for things other than being focused on becoming much more successful as citizens.
Okay. And as required by the permit, additional parking has been added on site, right?
Additional parking, as a matter of fact, the requirements are that we have a space for every 2 residents. We now have parking that would accommodate up to 10 individuals, in addition to street parking, which we tend not to use. We were also required to add additional landscaping, which we did, which I believe enhanced the overall appearance of the community in that particular corner of 56 in Blondo.
Yeah, I think so too. And I was there recently. The parking's in the back, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I think you mentioned this in your opening remarks, but it was an additional question. Can you talk a little bit more about who's accepted in that screening process? And
yes, and I appreciate the question that was asked. I'm a father, a grandfather, and actually a great-grandfather. My youngest great-grandson is 2 months old, and so I would surely want my children and grandchildren to live in a neighborhood that's safe. The questions that are on our application are not to determine who to accept, but to screen out those individuals who do not meet our requirements. There are other programs that serve individuals who have committed violent or sexual offenses. Second Mile is not that program. Clearly, our desire is to serve those men who have completed a first step program and have a strong desire to be reunited with their families and to be fully employed in the community.
Thanks. I had a recent example or a similar example of this situation in the Maple Village area of my district, and it was helpful for us to go through all these items together with the neighborhood and to have a meeting, which you already did, to discuss them and make sure everyone understood the background here and starts to build a relationship and knows who to contact if there's ever issues. And the other thing I think is favorable about a special use permit is that if there ever are issues or if things are not operated as have been represented, there is a mechanism by which the council can revisit that special use permit and eventually revoke that special use permit if we thought that was necessary. So I wanted neighbors to know that too. The last thing I would mention, and then we'll see if there's other questions, is the other thing I've found helpful in these situations is to, if a special use permit is going to be approved, it's helpful to tie that permit to the applicant, Second Mile in this case, who has made representations to the neighbors and the council members about how they're going to operate. Should they ever not operate or should they leave the property and go somewhere else, the permit is not tied to the property, but to the applicant. So should someone else come in new, they'd have to start over again and come back through this process and have a similar engagement with all of us, which I think is important. So what I would do, I think there's probably some further remarks here, but I do have an amended Exhibit B, which is part of item 21, if adopted, would add that particular provision that the permit is tied to the applicant and not the property. And I think we've talked about it, and that's perfectly okay with you, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll stop there for now. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say, Pastor Lester, I wish you were running the home that is located in my district that we have had so many problems with. I think the neighbors would welcome you, and we would love for you to take over. And I just want to say I appreciate the process that you go through and how you're trying to help. And it's not to say that potentially violent offenders or sex offenders also don't need another program. That's just not the program that you're serving here in this neighborhood.
Correct.
And so I think I appreciate that, and that should make the families feel better that that's what you're doing. What we found the most important thing is to have that constant contact number, the number where if any of the neighbors have any issues, they have a number to call. The home in my neighborhood, that was the thing that was lacking initially. And then also, though, the responsiveness of the people that were in charge, there was a lack of responsiveness as well. So there were the police coming literally 4 to 5 times a week, and the owners simply not doing anything for quite some time. So I think it's that communication and having that key piece, even if it's your phone number as well, where you can be reached in the event that they're not receiving a call back, because you just seem like the type of person that you would want to get involved at the start to make sure to avoid any issues. So I appreciate that, and it sounds like that's what you're doing. But I just wanted to share my experience, and then I also, if you don't mind, I wanted to call Marcella back up just for a moment. Hi, Marcella. Thank you for taking the time to come down. I did just want to share a little bit with you, because in Pepperwood, where there was a disabled home, they did not need a special use permit. So the home I was speaking about before, there was no permit. There was nothing that this council could revoke or take back because they didn't need it. And I have to say, the problems that they incurred, where there was really nothing myself or anybody on this council could do for them, was very problematic. So in this particular case, having a home that is subject to a permit, if you start to have any issues, you can contact your council member or any one of us, but I mean, we'll all respond. And this would be something that we could revoke the permit for. So you actually have more of an outlet and more kind of oomph behind you if there are problems than the neighbors had in the district in Pepperwood. where there is a home. And also, sometimes with the disabled homes, at least they were considering drug addicts who have done enough meth that they had become disabled, and then when they drink, I mean, we literally had people, one of the people living in the home was throwing giant rocks through the neighbor's window, and they had small children. There was violence that was actually happening. What I see the difference between that home and Pastor Lassiter's home is that they're going to be responsive, and then they have the city council kind of over them if they're not. So as much as I appreciate you coming down and I understand where you're coming from, and I was meeting with the family that had issues with the home multiple occasions, and I was on the phone with them on weekends and at night when they were scared. I get where you're coming from. I really do. But my suggestion would be keep in contact, because I think they seem very sincere. We can tell they seem very sincere in what they want to do in helping the people that are living there, but also very sincere in making sure that they're friends with the neighborhood and that they fit in with the neighborhood. So if that's not the case moving forward, I think you can call Pastor Lassiter up here, and he'd love to have a meeting, or you can call any one of us and we'll give him a call and remind him of what we talked about today. Does that help you, make you feel any better? Because I'm telling you that from what they're telling us, the application process and who they're letting in, I would feel much more comfortable having that process than the home that I have a problem home in my district right now. So just to let you know there.
No, I understand everything that you're saying. And then just like, as I went through the application, I didn't see those criteria that I just mentioned. So it just concerns me a little bit, thinking like, okay, with all due respect, but that's what they're saying.
Right.
But it's not on writing.
Well, and the problem is if they let kind of one bad apple in, what happens is it's a bad seed and it goes through the whole house and then affects all the other people who are trying to better themselves. So I think their goal will probably be to make sure they have people that are dedicated to this second mile and dedicated to bettering themselves, because if they're not, then they're going to hurt everybody else. So that's kind of how I see this program working. So it may be that you're fortunate to have this program who's moved in next to you than another program not associated with Pastor Lassiter.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come down.
Thank you.
Best of luck with the twins.
Thank you.
All right. If nothing further.
Thank you. There are no further lights. Procedurally, if Exhibit B was acceptable, the updated Exhibit B from today, 1/23/23, the motion would be to amend with that exhibit and then to approve as amended. Thank you. I'll second. No further lights. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Any member of the city council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the city council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the city council rules of order.
The public hearings on agenda items number 20 through 29 were held on January 10th. Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
The public hearings on agenda items number 30 through 58 are today. If you wish to address the city council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent.
Larry Storer, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. I am an opponent of items 47, 48, 67, 69, and 70, mainly for the reasons that are not stated and the things that are not said or discussed about all of the funding behind these issues. We all need help sometime in life. But the federal government seems to be getting too much of a share of our lives. So the questions that are not discussed on these issues at these meetings are what happens when that federal funding goes away? What happens to the lives you're affecting with this funding now? When the funding from the federal government goes away, what are you going to do to replace it? You're probably going to have to go to the taxpayers of the city and the county. Or you're going to have to kick people out of these houses. How's it going to look then? So let's also discuss with the citizens at these meetings and these topics as to what the backup plans are. Because if the voters happen to turn you out for promoting too much socialism and dependence on a federal government that's not supposed to be, then these people will be left hanging in the wind. And who's going to pick up the pieces of that? Our federal system is based on federalism, which means a split between the responsibilities of the federal government and the state and local governments. There was no intention for the federal government to be involved in things like this. These are local issues. And I feel rather sad for our city and our county when we don't have people that are qualified to solve these problems. That there aren't people that live in this county and the city that'll step up to take care of these problems instead of rushing to the federal government or rushing for that COVID money that's going to disappear real quick. And then if that falls through, the COVID money, of course, you're going to be responsible for making up. How are you going to do that? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on items 30 through 58?
Ladies first.
All right.
I have no problem.
Hello, I'm Alicia Christensen. I'm with Together Omaha at, let's see, I forgot the address, 812 South 24th Street. And I just wanted to voice our thanks for your cooperation and collaboration with the non-congregate shelter funded in part by the agenda item 48. This provided an option for people who were unsafe. It was unsafe for them to go to a congregate shelter, particularly during COVID-19 because of health complications, but it also addresses needs for those who need to go there for other safety reasons, including avoiding domestic violence situations. And we are happy to be able to continue the service with this this has got us started on the programming, and now we have integrated this into our programming and applied through our continuum of care for funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development in the federal government. So I just am really proud to be a part of this collaboration, and I think it's a great benefit to the citizens of Omaha and helping those people that have nowhere else to go. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Donnie Johnson, the Johnson and Question Foundation, 4928 North 52nd Street. Item number 33, Mr. Fredrickson. I'm a very strong supporter of the VFW and their programs, but at this time, I should also mention to you that members of my association of the North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation and Congress have decided that we're going to withhold all the fundings to American Legion for 2 years so they can sober up. They're drinking too much at the American Legion and the DVAV. But the VFW is doing a wonderful job, and I applaud them. But the American Legion, we have some problem with their programs. And Mr. Harding, Councilman Harding, you might not know we have a lot of problems in North Omaha. So that's why she's asking about that alcohol. So I know you live in a well-established neighborhood, which is wonderful. But me, myself, I turned down a job at the United Nations just to come back and see and meet with you, sir.
Any other comments on these items? I think we do have the Benson VFW here.
I'm Sharon Cooper, Address 5005 North 136th Street. I am the person named in number 33. I will have this responsibility because of my position at the VFW. I'm the quartermaster. Recently had an election. The previous quartermaster resigned, and so I was elected to be the quartermaster. And I speak for this to happen. And this is our senior vice, Al Dorn.
Hi, my name is Alan Dorn. I live at 9205 Brown Street in Omaha. I am the Benson VFW Post 2503 Senior Vice Commander representing the post, and we are here to support and answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here, and thank you for your service too. I appreciated being at your ceremony recently where you dedicated the new deck and fire pit in the back, and I can attest that it was responsibly done.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other testifiers on these items? Seeing none, public hearings are closed. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 59, an ordinance to approve a memorandum of understanding amending the collective bargaining agreement with the Omaha Police Officers Association.
This item was postponed from the December 13th meeting. The request has been made again by the applicant and with agreement by the city to lay over for 2 weeks to February 7th. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 60, an ordinance levying a special tax assessment for litter removal, Group 2023-01, A's amendment of the whole, requested by the Parks Department.
The vote on number 60 is today. There's an amendment of the whole. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 61, an ordinance levying a special tax assessment for weeds, Group 2023-02, A's amendment of the whole, requested by the Parks Department.
The vote on number 61 is today, also with an amendment of the whole. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 62, a resolution to approve the professional services agreement with George Butler Associates, Inc. in the amount of $98,535 for the sewer assessment and rehabilitation within streetcar project limits.
Public hearing and vote on number 62 is today. Proponents, please.
Jim Tyler, City of Omaha Public Works. This is just a routine investigation of the sewer system that we do when we have infrastructure projects occurring, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have about this work.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I have a question about why the route is going through this street, or the actual route that they decided why that is. I haven't seen any documentation and support or rationale as to why the streetcar is going to go over Harney Street.
Yes, Luis, this isn't about the streetcar route. This is about assessing sewers underneath.
For streetcar.
Yes, you can rest the sewers underneath the streetcar,
Yeah.
but the route
So,
is not the topic of conversation today.
with that in mind, because the route, they said this is a good route. The streetcar authority said that this was a good route. I want to know why that is. What's the rationale besides just replacing Route 15 of the bus system and the bike lane, the projected bike lane?
Okay, it's a separate conversation, but I appreciate the question. Any other opponents to number 62?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I guess it's related to the streetcar thing for the downtown area to 42nd Street, which I'm opposed to. I don't think we need it to attract people. Therefore, we didn't get to vote either. Therefore, I'm against the $98,000. So, and why waste our time on it when we don't get to vote on it anyway? It's a done deal. So you're wasting city money even talking about this. It was probably already decided. If you want something to attract people, build a tram and let them ride over above the streets where they can see everything that's going on, like at the zoo. Thank you.
Any other opponents to number 62? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to be clear that I am completely aware of what this item is and what we're voting on, just so that there is no misunderstanding. I am very clear of what is before us. However, this is a byproduct of the streetcar, which I am in opposition to. Why? Because public transportation going north and south has been inadequate for decades. And when asked to provide better services, I was told that maybe 6 years from today, it might happen. When asked, how about providing public shelter in lieu of, I was not given an answer. So again, I'm very clear of what's before us. But this money will be spent for the purposes of streetcar, which I am not in support of. Therefore, I will not be voting yes for this. So please, when we report the news, make it very clear that I'm not in support of the streetcar. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jim, couple questions for you. The combined sewer separation project is an ongoing 10-year plus really project. What we're approving today is something that is more routine in nature than I think the descriptor really lays out on the agenda. Is that correct?
Sure. So for every major infrastructure project where we know that our sewers below ground could pose a threat, like roadway improvements, our combined sewer projects themselves, we're going to look at the sewers, the manholes, all of our sewer infrastructure underground, assess the condition, and understand the investment we need to make so the above ground infrastructure does not fail. It could be a roadway project. We just did some assessments at Leavenworth and Saddle Creek for the improvements that are going on there to make sure the sewers are going to be fine when those improvements go on. So this is routine to any infrastructure project where we know we're going to be doing work above ground.
So, and you illustrated a couple other projects that in the past have gone through a similar process, and I would assume that as like our CIP, where projects move up and down, and some come, further up the schedule than originally planned.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, would that be the case in what we're discussing here today?
Yeah. So we will investigate a portion of our system annually. And then again, we will investigate for projects annually. We budget, just I'll give you an example. We have about $200 million in capital improvements each year under our sewer revenue. We budget for pipeline improvements. We budget about $45 million. okay, for pipeline improvements. And based on priorities and where we need to see we need to look, we will move that money around. So this is taking a small portion of that money and reprioritizing it to make sure we're supporting this infrastructure project. It's not new money, it falls within the budgets we have.
Okay.
Does
which
that
I think
answer your
is-
question?
Yeah, and which is an important point, I think, is that this is not any increase in anyone's budget.
No.
This is just a reprioritization of a project area.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. So on the same topic that Mr. Harding's talking about, so you have a calendar that reaches out how many years that I'm assuming that would note when you're going to be in a certain neighborhood looking and assessing the condition of the sewers, right?
So for condition assessments, we respond to infrastructure projects when they're happening. So if we know roadway projects, we're budgeting a certain amount of money for that. For certain programs, like our combined sewer program, we have a lookout till 2037. Okay, so we're looking out close to an additional 15 years for that. That oftentimes gets reprioritized, but we have budgets based on a long-term lookout, a 5-year CIP and a 1-year CIP that at times get reprioritized because of shifts in prioritizing that occurs just within the overall programs we have.
Perfect. That's kind of what I was thinking, that this is a project that's going to be going on all throughout the city anyway, at least in the eastern part of the city.
Yeah, and just maybe to help you out a little bit, and I wasn't sure if I was going to need this map, and it might help a little bit. And this is at a very small scale, but that's a map of the city of Omaha, and that's 2,300 miles of separate and combined sewers, and the dark blue are the about 1/4 of the system where we have done detailed condition assessments. And some of those areas we're looking there because we know we have a problem in the system, it's leaky. Some of those areas we're looking because there was an infrastructure project up above, so we wanted to make sure that before that was completed, we did the detailed investigation, so we completed the work underground. So you can see it's kind of random and scattered across the city. Out west is mostly associated with leaky systems that we know we have to correct. Over here on the east side, it's mostly associated where we've done projects. There's a big area in Coal Creek where we've done a lot of projects. So that's kind of how we, I didn't know if this map would help, but I hope that kind of explains to where we're going to look where we know we have the issues, and then we go look where we know we have a project and we need to make corrections before that project happens.
Thank you. Ms. Milton, you're recognized.
Thanks. So, Jim, can you tell me, can you provide the list of, we've been doing these combined sewer separation projects for, when do we start these? At least 12 years ago?
We started doing sewer separation projects in the 80s through the 90s, and they converted to, we were going after basement backups in people's homes and residence. And then starting in 2009, we started doing the combined sewer program, which was keeping that sewage out of the streets. Yes.
That's what I was referring to. So 09, so I was a year off there, 13.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we do this routinely for all major projects in the city?
We do them in areas where we know we're going to have critical infrastructure that could pose a risk. So, for example, if we have a good idea of what our sewers condition is, we're not going to go out and reinvestigate it. Okay, if we this map shows that we have a recent investigation, we may not have to go out and reinvestigate it. Okay, if we know we have a sewer separation project listed in our plan within the next 5 years, we're going to go out a year or two in advance and we're going to investigate that specific area. So outside of the CSO program, we don't have a lot of listed projects. It's mostly in response to other type of projects that are happening, like a roadway project or an improvement that's happening, and then we set aside dollars to make sure we're able to do those investigations and subsequent rehabilitation work if we need to. Is that,
So what you're saying is you don't know if you need rehabilitation work on these sewers, you're just going out and checking?
we don't know until we verify. Okay, everything we have is based on, if we haven't looked, we're basing it on an assumption that we don't know if it's real. So it's our job to go in and make that verification and take a hard look at what we have going underground. It would not be in our best interest to make an assumption. We're going to go in and look and find out what's real below ground.
Okay, and so these are areas along Harney and Farnham that you haven't looked at previously?
This is within a 3-block corridor. We're going to verify these areas. This specific is concentrating on 500 manholes along with the collection system within that area. When we do, it's not just assessing the condition, it's validating and verifying a cost to rehabilitate, which will then lead to putting together the plans for the work.
So if I can just throw something out there, like when Blackstone was done, did you do this in the Blackstone area when they were doing all of that work in Blackstone?
In Blackstone,
how do you determine which projects you do this for or not?
we work with, if there are our own projects, we are always looking at them. We'll work with, like we're constantly working with our transportation division. They'll tell us they have a project in an area. Okay, we'll based on our knowledge of the system, we will determine if we need to go do a detailed investigation or not, and then rehabilitate that area before an improvement is made.
So if you needed to do that, would this be something that then could delay the project?
We typically, and I'm not going to say typically, we like to do our work out in advance. A lot of times we verify that nothing needs to be done. For example, on this Saddle Creek and Leavenworth project, we determined that there's rehab, but it's not critical in nature right now at this time. So we just want to make sure that if we're doing anything in that area, we do it before or after, so we're not there at the same time the contractor is trying to complete their work. So there's a lot of back and forth to make sure we work exactly with the project to do the timing of our work to make sure it supports the work that's being done above ground. In this instance here, we're looking at a corridor 3 blocks wide where we know somewhere within that corridor the pavement's going to come up. And we're going to make sure that we do our work before that pavement comes up.
Well, would your work ever include pulling the pavement up?
It depends on the type of repair we're doing. We can do some trenchless repairs if we just have to do the work inside the pipe. If we have to replace a pipe, we have to tear the pavement up.
So would this be something that maybe you could save some money on if they're already tearing the road up? You could wait until they tear it up for this and then you could go do your work?
Absolutely, and that's part of the coordinated efforts that are going on in this area is we want to make sure that those things are heavily coordinated. So we're working with each other on all these things. They're coordinated with all the utility work that's going to happen underground. We're going to make sure it happens in a manner that keeps the cost low for all the utility companies doing the work, including our own.
Your work.
Yes.
So this would be something where really the CSO could save some money if the road's already torn up. They could replace some of the piping and they wouldn't necessarily be on the hook for paying for the road tear up and road replacement that they normally have to do.
Those are part of the coordinated ongoing efforts that we have people talking with the program managers with the streetcar project that are making sure that all those efforts are being coordinated to keep that overall cost low for utilities.
Okay, which includes the CSO.
Includes our own sanitary and combined sewers.
And if the work needs to be done, it has to be done whether the streetcar is built or not. Is that right? At some point, it's going to have to be done.
What we're doing in the area where the infrastructure project is a streetcar is we know there's going to be tracks in those streets somewhere. We're not going to be able to go in there for another 50 years. So we're going to make sure that when we look at these, we want to make sure that, if this thing's close and it may be able to last 10 years, we're not going to take that risk. We're going to do that rehabilitation to make sure that that's there as long as it can last with any type of rehabilitation we can do.
Okay. And you would do that for any project that was being done where the street would open up or you might need to
We look at the type of project. For example, a overlay project. Those could be happening every 10 years or so. The type of repairs we make underneath that could be different than a pavement project where we're hoping to get 20 or 30 years out of that, where we don't want to have to go back in and tear it up. So we're going to base the type of work we do underground on the longevity of what we're looking at above ground.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I think, not sure I'm as clear as I would like to be.
Okay.
Only because I guess the information I was looking for that I don't have is, give me a list of all the projects that we've done in the last 10 years that were like this. But
I can
and
very much
I
get you
didn't
that.
expect you to do that between 10:30 and 2 like that. I don't have those kind of unrealistic expectations. But what I'm saying is that's what I'd like to see, and that's why I said I'd like to have like a meeting and a briefing with you on
Sure.
the CSO that's more extensive than what I'm going to do standing here today, because it's more expansive than what just this project entails.
Sure.
But this project has gotten me to say, when do we do this? When have we done it? How do you decide to do it? I guess that's, give me all the past ones and all the future ones coming up.
Sure, and I can give you a little bit, like with this map, you're going to see some very random scattered stuff where it really wasn't associated with the project. And if I had the details behind these big clusters, we would be able to go in and I could show you that was associated with the project we did in Coal Creek 7 years ago. And this one was associated with the project we did up on North 24th Street. So the information you're asking for is there, and I can get it for you along with information on projects we're going to be doing going forward.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jim.
Yep.
I appreciate the work.
Thank you, Mr. Palermo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Tyler, so along the same questions, which are pretty basic, where we're saying this is something that we're not asking the projects in particular, at least I'm not, but this is something that I would assume by the basic professional service agreement with the scope of these services, this is something that we probably do as a city with city personnel and city equipment all the time, correct?
We do, yes, we do some of these things with city staff. Because of limitations in city staff, we supplement that with outside help, is the way that goes. Typically, when we have a capital project, we will use supplementary staff. And our staff just does the day-to-day routine stuff that, just happens every day. That's typical.
So yeah, you knew where my question was going.
Yes.
The next question being, why are we hiring this out when we have city personnel with city equipment that can fulfill this scope of services with a project that's upcoming, that there isn't that time crunch that we have in front of us, other than finding what issues may arise that we can fix down the road when we get to that point?
Let me make sure I'm answering your question. So you're asking why we're not doing this with city staff?
Correct.
This one specifically, we evaluate each project on, can we handle this with city staff, or is our city staff tied up where we have to hire out? That's an assessment made with our sewer maintenance. We have 4 TV trucks. We don't have the amount of engineering assistance that we need to support all that. GBA's an engineer. They're going to do manhole-specific investigations as a part of this work, to where their engineers will assess the condition and provide that information back to us for the full picture. A lot of these are kind of joint work, to where we may not have enough city staff to do the work, but we're going to assign someone to go out there and work with them. And our crew's worried about a cave-in. We're responding more kind of reactively with city staff, whereas we see some proactive things that need to happen outside of what we can handle, we'll contract those out.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. No further lights? Motion to approve? And a second? Roll call.
Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson.
No, more, street, bus shelters.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 4-3. Item 63.
It's the council's intention to go into executive session on number 63. So without objection, I want to move that item to the last item on our agenda so we can do the rest of the public hearings first. So we'll now move to item number 64.
Item 64, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a purchase order to Interstate Power Systems for the Missouri River Water Resource Recovery Facility and Papillion Creek Water Resource Recovery Facility.
The public hearing on number 64 is today. Proponents, please.
Donnie Johnson, the Johnson Question Foundation, North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation, on number 64, Mr. President. In 15 years, 20 years from now, I don't know where all of you folks will be, but at the same time, we're already in the process of changing all the gas stations. And the gas stations today we see today are not going to be here 15 years from now. They're all being changed.
So we're talking about the Papillion Creek Water Resource Recovery Facility, right?
Perfect. Now, President Obama, the last piece of legislation he signed was when he left office to put electrical outlets throughout the United States for electrical cars.
That's not what we're talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to share with Ms. Johnson here. That's why the mayor is moving in this direction. There's probably going to be no fossil gas station in about 15 years from now.
Any proponents on number 64? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 65, an ordinance to acquire private property for the Signal Infrastructure Phase D2 project.
Public hearing on number 65 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 66, an ordinance vacating a portion of Brown Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on number 66 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 67, an ordinance to amend sections 2 and 3 of the agreement with Match in the amount of $16,908,704.30.
Public hearing on number 67 is today. Proponents, please.
Greg Pascatch, City of Omaha Planning Department. Here as a proponent, this is an amendment allowing ERA2 reallocated funds to be added to Match's existing agreement. So happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. Once again, I'm opposed to this because we're relying on somebody else, the federal government, spreading the cost out across the country and still out of my pocket to a certain extent. Emergency rental assistance funds also. It smacks to me of discrimination based on income. And I think a lot of citizens are getting kind of tired of protected classes for this, protected classes for that. And now we're going to help everybody get a house if they only have 50% of the nationally recognized income. But you don't say what you're going to do for me. We'd like to know what you're going to do for me.
Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I had just a couple questions. I had sent to planning to get some information on, I had some questions from people that I talked to in the community. And Aaron, I think you're here. Do you got a second for a couple questions?
Didn't mean to wave like that. Aaron Feichtinger, 1111 North 13th Street.
Aaron, good afternoon. Thanks for being here today. I appreciate the answers you provided. I know it took you time, and it gave me a lot of good insight. One of the questions I had with the portion of available dollars from the federal treasury, is there any funds that the city can potentially get allocated to us directly from the Treasury? Because I know on our agenda, the amount is, I want to make sure I get this right, $19,277,559.58 in emergency rental assistance. The ask, I think, was, the term was, there was $180 million out there, so we're getting the funds that I just referenced there. Is there any way that we can get additional funds from the federal treasury on top of the 19.7 million?
Like I told you before this meeting, there is, and you said, so there's a chance, like there's probably a 0.0001% chance that the U.S. Treasury will continue allocating emergency rental assistance dollars. Their most recent guidance pointed to the fact that these ERA 2 programs are spending their money so efficiently and doing such a, well, programs like Omaha's are doing such a good job of this that they really don't, they think they'll be out of money entirely in the emergency rental assistance program after this allocation, but we'll know by June 2023, according to their most recent guidance, if there is additional funding available. But this money is the money that primarily that the state program in not applying for ERA 2 during the last legislative session essentially gave up $80 million involuntarily reallocated, and part of that was this money that we're receiving today.
And there's a federally defined cap of 18 months of assistance an applicant can receive. Can you just briefly elaborate on that, just so we're clear on that, so people listening, they understand the resources that are available and they're limited?
Right. So that's in federal statute, the 18-month cap. So applicants can only receive up to 18 months worth of emergency rental assistance. So, and Match is here as well and could speak more eloquently to the way that this is going to be distributed. But given the fact that we've been distributing this money since April of 2021, there are a lot of applicants who we've already seen and who we will continue to see who will naturally hit that 18-month cap and now no longer be eligible to receive emergency rental assistance. So for folks who may be concerned that we're just giving out free rent for years and years and years, that is actually not the case.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate you coming down. And I see it, Alicia's here. You were on the item 48 was discussed earlier. I know, thanks. I went to the eviction court last week with Alicia from Together, and the $65,000 that we voted on for Together, that's for people that they got nowhere else to go. So I personally wanted to thank Together for the great work you guys do. And in respect to the work that's put into the item before us here today, those funds were allocated helping people during the pandemic, and it's getting compressed now. So I know there was some surprise to the 19.7 million that's before us today. It was 180 million out there, but that is not the case. And as Aaron described, maybe, hopefully we can get beyond the 19.7 million, but we're planning on that not happening unless something changes. So again, I appreciate the answers you provided and the time you took to do that. And Alicia, thanks again for the work Together does, and the others that are going to be dispersing with Match to help people in our community going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we have Match representatives here. Is there anything you'd like to add or any updates you'd want to provide?
Good afternoon, Jason Feldhaus, Executive Director of Match, Metro Area Continuum of Care for the Homeless, 6001 Dodge Street, 68182. I think that what you're bringing up also is Match is dedicated to working with our community partners about really looking at our long-term success of this program over the next 33 months. And we do have a much smaller pool of funds than we currently had over the last few years. But with that being said, I think we're also trying to leverage as much of our private dollars that we have in our communities, advance public services in certain ways with case management entities, look more preventative than we are right now, crisis management. And those are, I think, the beauty of what we have as an opportunity before us. Obviously, as budgets get tighter, we're going to have to do a lot more collaboration, community conversation, in partnership with the city and other, our other counties that we oversee in our COC. But we look at it as a real opportunity to use this as an investment long term, to find best practices and strategies to move forward. And in cooperation with that, over the next couple of years, there's a huge investment in affordable housing that will be available through other other funding sources like ARPA and things like that. And so we believe if we can work over the next 33 months to find those best practices, work with our community providers, our advocates, and find ways to get people into affordable housing in a strong fashion, I think we can accomplish a lot with what dollars we currently have. So I just wanted to mention that.
Great, thank you. Thanks for being here, and thanks for your work helping those in need. No further lights. Next item.
Item 68, an ordinance to accept the bid of Allstate Pest Control, Inc. to provide pest control services for the Omaha Fire Department.
Public hearing on number 68 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi, my name is Crystal Nguyen. I'm here on behalf of Allstate Pest Control Incorporated, 2404 Fontenelle Boulevard. Just here to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 69, an ordinance to authorize and accept the disbursement over more than one fiscal year from the fiscal year 2022 State Homeland Security Grant Award in the amount of $512,793.60.
Public hearing on number 69 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 70, an ordinance to approve an agreement with Douglas County in the amount of $200,000 and to authorize funding for such agreement from the City of Omaha's fiscal year 2022 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant Program.
Public hearing on number 70 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 63, a resolution to approve the settlement for Hunter Matthew in the amount of $253,000.
I'll take a motion to go into executive session to discuss only the contents of number 63. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Harding. Oh, sorry. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Council will meet in executive session to discuss item 63 at 3:37.
only talked about item number 63. I'll take a motion to come out of executive session. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo.
Yes, sir, here.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Do you need to read the item?
Item 63, a resolution to approve the settlement for Hunter Matthew in the amount of $253,000.
The public hearing on number 63 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
I do have a question.
Oh, Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for sticking around for finance. It's a question for finance. Since we are voting on an amount for settlement for a sexual discrimination suit, I'm interested, or remind me and others, how do we go about financially working on the budget for judgments? Like, what part of who's in the discussions of what should be in the judgment fund?
So, Andrew Brought, City Finance, we work with law. They kind of have an idea of what they expect the claims to be. And so that particular fund is funded by the property tax levy. And so it's the smallest of the 4 funds. So there's 2 debt service funds, a general fund, and then this judgment fund. And the judgment fund, it's about 1% of the property tax levy, but we work with them to set that budget annually.
Okay, and could you tell me what the budget will be moving forward?
Sure.
In the judgment fund, what do we have in there financially?
Sure, we ended last year with about $6 million. We estimated in 2023 that we would spend about $2 million. It brings in revenues of currently at about $2.7 million. And that changes as assessment values go up, but that's kind of the basic budget for 2023. So it's projected after spending that money at the end of 2023, it's projected to have about $6.7 million.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Mr.
you.
President.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. You have to vote on the
I'm sorry. I thought I had this public hearing. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second? Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 4:24.
Mr. Q.